Hi everybody, I very recently made this video, Johnson PM must resign, suspend the GE, and in that video I shared this clip here from Carol Cadwaladre, who's giving evidence at, I think it's an international committee, about corruptions in elections really, and the rise of far-right extremism, fake news, and the fake news it all thrives on. And as she says, this is not a situation that should exist in any well-functioning democracy. Britain is now a warning to the rest of the world, because what happened in our country could happen in yours. And you can hear the emotion in her voice as she speaks about the risks that we face as a nation now, because the people that were at the helm of the Brexit vote, persuading the Brexit vote, mostly Tories, people like Boris Johnson and all his entourage, who participated and commandeered a fraudulent referendum, lying to people, employing corporate entities to target them online, and just even illegal funding. And from there, now they're all at number 10. And with the Brexit Party behind them as well. It is really disturbing. And she says exactly as I stated it in my thing here, Intel for Brexit, that we really can't, you can't trust a general election held by such criminals, by people who are known to have behaved criminally and acted against democracy and are against the EU and are themselves agents of foreign powers, foreign interests, like Trump. Far-right extremists in other nations who themselves are being investigated by their own nations. It's really a very serious matter to be thinking of us going into a general election on the strength of all that, because that's what this election is all about, isn't it? It's not a regular GE. It is about Brexit. So, in a way, it's an extension of the Brexit referendum. And Carol has every right to be concerned, deeply concerned. We all have a right, regardless of where we stand politically, or where even we stand on the issue of Brexit. Because I can't really think of any people in the right mind that would vote to scrap all their human rights, workers' rights, environmental protection laws, maternity leave rights to retire, put themselves at risk under a criminal government that wants to scrap the human rights and impose martial law on them the moment their hard Brexit comes into play. And even hand our NHS over to American corporations and remove all the health and safety standards off the food that we'll be importing from where, because they haven't even got one trade deal sorted out yet. And they've said they've got no legal duty to provide us food, the government haven't, but they are going to provide us with a body bag. That's about as much as they can assure us. So, since this video's been made from this tribunal, we now know the existence of a report about Russian involvement in the Brexit referendum that the government's been sitting on, and we only know it exists because somebody's leaked the fact that it exists. And I've asked in this video that now we know about this, we need to see it. The government's saying we can't see it till after the GE. but actually we need to see it, because this report directly relates to the general election, because the general election itself relates to the Brexit that the Russia report is about. And we already have such evidence against the people that commandeered, led the Brexit fraudulent campaign, Boris Johnson, now Prime Minister, on the strength of that fraudulent referendum. You see, criminals getting from strength to strength, power to power. That he's already abused his power in trying to thwart democracy. So why should we even think for 1 minute that this upcoming GE is going to be fair, secure? Because there's all kinds of shenanigans gone on in the past. You know, Theresa May, the 200,000 ballot papers that went missing from a van that got stolen. 200,000 blank ballot papers. I mean, that's enough to swing an election in Britain. The way constituencies work, you'd only need a few hundred extra votes in this constituency, a couple of thousand of extra votes in that constituency. Yeah, you probably could swing a landslide. Or perhaps even a coalition government. With the DUP, just at the time the pair of you are conniving for a Brexit that covertly is designed to scrap the Good Friday Agreement. Is that how closely they can fine-tune it? Or was that just a pure coincidence? We're talking very dangerous times, very dangerous people that are fighting to keep their power, who really do consider the 99% absolute scum. They're just to put X's in boxes and do the work. And they want to strip us, they want to use this Brexit to strip us of all our rights. But more than that, the corporations, the foreign interests, both in Britain and, you know, the interest of Britain and foreign interests, are not happy about the EU and its tax regulations and its restrictions against tax havens. Russian oligarchs, American, Israeli, you name it, have got interests in central London, which is there as a state within a state. It is a foreign state within the state of Britain. That's a fact. They don't want Brussels imposing tax regulations on them and restrictions on their tax havens. They want to keep their sovereignty. And they'll scrap our sovereignty. Because they lie. They're telling people Brexit is for your sovereignty. No, it isn't. Not for our sovereignty. Not for the people of Britain. Sovereignty for central London. In order for them to be free to commit crime, to live above the law. But at the same time, to dictate and control us by their laws, their corporate laws, like they've just imposed on the workers of Asda a few weeks before Christmas, telling them, you signed these 0-hour contracts, basically. No, you're not having any more breaks or holidays, or you work when we snap our fingers and you won't work when we don't want you, kind of attitude. Just at a time when they know that there is no social security system viable now. That if they all walked out at this minute, they'd be unlikely to get any money till after Christmas through social security. And that's why social security is important. And that's why corporations don't like it. Because they can't do exactly what Asda has just done to their workforce. Because the workforce would turn around and say, well, get lost then. We'll go and subsidise. We'll live on subsidies living rather than be a wage slave for you That's the whole point of a social security system. That's why corporations don't like it. Because they can't bottom the workforce out. So, you know, we're talking about theft. And now, even more evidence has come to light. Because not only do we have the Russia report information here, we also have if I can just get the ad blocker off. We also have here Boris Johnson Conservative Party has received a surge in cash from Russian donors. Now, would Parliament have agreed to a general election if they knew the existence of the Russia report? Would they have agreed? I don't think that MPs would have agreed to hold this GE until they'd seen the Russia report. Especially not in light of all the evidence that Carol shares here as well, and that I've shared, and so many other people have shared, because we're aware. Would they have agreed? And now, look what's come out. Boris Johnson's Conservative Party has received a surge in cash from Russian donors. Because all the same interests that were there for Brexit, both in Britain and abroad, are there now for this general election. And we've got one man, Jeremy Corbyn. Other parties, like for example Nigel Farage, this is more evidence. Admits he was offered a peerage 48 hours before Brexit U-turn. This is Britain's media. With a spin, again, even from the Mirror, who are supposed to be pro-left. Because this isn't a U-turn. He hasn't done a U-turn. This is a tactic. Because Nigel Farage still wants Brexit. But now he's decided to use a tactic. And his tactic is to pull the Brexit Party candidates out of 317 seats the Conservatives won in the 2017 election. He vowed to target Labour-held constituencies instead. Claimed he changed his mind after watching a Prime Minister Twitter video where Mr Johnson said the UK would not extend a Brexit transition due to ending December 2020 and seek a fair trade agreement with Brussels. So basically, December 2020, if Johnson gets in, with the help of Mr Farage here and whoever else, then we're basically facing December 2020, exactly what we were facing October 31st, except delayed for a year. A hard, catastrophic Brexit that threatens to kill thousands of British people and destroy the livelihoods and hopes of thousands of British people. And scrap all our rights. I mean, the list is endless. We're talking like, you know, it is a bounty for the corporation. And it is a terrible... It has terrible implications for the rest of the world, and especially Europe. Because we are talking about losing everything that we established as a democratic socio-capitalist society after World War II. Because we are the 99%, the 99% that made Britain great, that fought 2 world wars, that established all our rights and a welfare state, because we were never going back to serfdom, slavery, again, where we were going to be used like tools and then thrown away. And we look at the manifestos of the other parties. Brexit Party hasn't got a manifesto apart from Brexit. The Lib Dems are what? Wishy-washy nonsense. Jeremy Corbyn is offering a second referendum, which is all right, because people were lied to. That is no way to run a referendum. Because why would you need to lie to the public, to manipulate them, to persuade them to vote, accept the vote to be against their own best interest? That's why they have to be lied to. And even worse, that those lies were made believable, even reasonable, by the BBC, who failed to challenge them and actually failed to present the facts and information that people needed about the impacts of Brexit. That when people like myself out campaigning were explaining to people what the impacts of leaving the EU was, we were told we were fear-mongering. Now, don't tell me the BBC didn't know what I knew. They've got news teams, they've got teams of researchers. They knew, and they failed to tell the public. But Jeremy Corbyn, he's the only one. He's got a manifesto. It's a human manifesto. It's everything. It's our culture that we established when we finally had a say after World War II. For the first time in hundreds of years, the British people were strong and powerful. Consisted of an electorate that was experienced in battle, that was armed, that decided, no, we don't want no more of this. Now we're going to have our say. We put our Labour. Clement Attlee came in, like Jeremy Corbyn today, to establish our human rights, our workers' rights, on our National Health Service, free education, to give people dignity, a chance in life. And it's been battle, all of the way. The Tories have been against it, all the way. Calling him Stalin. To this day, he's Stalin. You know, that's what Attlee was. Communism coming to Britain. It's not communism. He's not anti-capitalist. He supports businesses, private businesses, even corporate businesses, if they're prepared to pay the taxes. But, you know, he's been attacked from every side. From the corporate media, the BBC. The Brexit Party now is like a separate little army standing aside Boris, helping Boris. I mean, is that even lawful? And then on the other hand, people like myself who live in a Tory constituency are being told to vote tactically to stop the Tories getting back in to vote for her. I mean, why should I vote for a Lib Dem? Why should they get any seats of power? She's Tory through and through. She's voted for every single horrible Tory policy, evil policy, austerity, you name it, the lot. She's voted for it. As far as I'm concerned, she's complicit in the murder of 130,000 British citizens who've died directly through the economic policy of austerity, to the extent that the people who did the study accused this government of economic murder. That accusation stands with her. But why should they get extra seats or any power whatsoever after it's only through them that the Tories got in the first place? She formed a coalition with Cameron. They formed a coalition with Cameron. Nick Clegg it was then leading. They let them in. And now it's the Tories. Because it's only them that wanted this Brexit. Nobody else was asking for Brexit. It was the Tories, their backers, their financial interests that wanted Brexit because of the EU taxes. And now through them we've got Brexit. And now she's promising to just scrap Article 50, cancel Brexit, no referendum, no second referendum. She's just going to scrap it, apparently. No, all she'll do is help the Tories get back in, and she'll stand with the Tories, and she'll vote with them, just like they did over the student tuition fees. You know, fool you twice, yeah, we're the fool if we're going to get fooled twice. These people have already fooled us once. So this is a very serious matter because, you know, as Farage says here, I think our action, this announcement today, prevents a second referendum from happening. See? That's why he's using this tactic. It's not a U-turn, it's a tactic. Because he wants to stop a second referendum. Why is that? I thought he was anxious to honour the vote of the 2017 election. The 2017 referendum, 2016 referendum. I thought he wanted to honour that vote. But no, because he knows very well that if a second referendum comes, now the people understand reality, that people are going to vote very likely to stay or else for a deal that's been negotiated by the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, because that's what he's offering, a vote to leave with a deal, a fair deal, or a vote to stay. So they know that they've lost their hard Brexit then. The far right have lost their power over Britain. So they're not for, you know, manifesto pledge to respect the result of the referendum. You know, why should we respect a result of a referendum that did not even respect the electorate's rights to vote to privacy? That has not even respected the rules of a referendum and cannot even respect the rules of an election, and uses dirty tricks. Tricksters and schemers. So, you know, as I say, with this now, and with them sitting on this Russia report, and all the evidence about Brexit that Carol's presented as well, and myself and so many other people are sharing, I think Parliament has a duty. I'm sure you must have a lawful duty of care now to reconvene and demand to see this, the report that they've been sitting on. Because you need to ask yourselves, would you have agreed to this general election if you'd have known about the existence of the report and the fact that they were hiding it, and now they're saying they're not going to release it till after? We're basically getting a repeat of Donald Trump with the Mueller report. Except at least people knew the Mueller report actually existed, and the press were talking about who was being interviewed and investigated throughout it all. We've known nothing. We've been totally in the dark about it. So I think Parliament does need to reconvene. You need to suspend the general election, and you need to look at the report. You need to listen to the Carol's evidence and tighten up, secure, make sure this election's secure, an interim government. And then we have another GE. And obviously Boris Johnson, and all of them are going to have to step down. Because, you know, we are talking crime, and as Carol rightly expresses her dismay, that the authorities haven't acted. They've failed to address these very serious issues. But, you know, what can I say? At the end of the day, if people aren't going to act, if we're going to have to take part in this general election, then all we can do is vote Labour. Vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Vote human. This isn't a time for party politics. But if he doesn't get in, then we are going to just have to do in Iceland, and it's going to be very, very hard, because they're going to be in on a general election. They're going to be spouting the same stuff that they've been spouting about the referendum. We're here to respect democracy. From people whose whole route to power has been a denial and a betrayal and an oppression of democracy.